All right. What's up, everybody? What's up? What's up? What's up? We got Spark Nation. We got Zachary. We got Kuro Blitz. How's it going, everyone? I'm glad to see you. Glad to see you. Glad. We got 5 viewers on deck. What's up, y'all? What's up? What's up? Time for us to talk Pokemon. Pokemon. Why are you crying? Pokemon. So, let's get down to business. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is the video games. Obviously, we got the Direct not that long ago. The Pokemon Presents wasn't that long ago. And we already discussed the Pokemon Presents stuff during the Presents. And we discussed it afterwards with Terrell. And then later on, we had our own separate discussion with Nessa. So now, we're digging deep. Just in general. And I think the reason that this started up was one, if you haven't already, go watch Polly's World Twitch channel. Polly did a stream of, she's not set up as one of my things. I'll set her up later after that. But long story short, Polly had streamed Pokemon White not that long ago, a couple of days ago actually. And all of us were in it. All of us were in that stream. And it was a really fun stream. It was a really great job on her part. And it was very entertaining. But it got me to thinking about a lot of things. Because when we got off stream, we were just talking. And then one of the things she asked me was like, what are some of the things that Pokemon Crystal has that Pokemon Gold and Silver don't? And that got me thinking about a bunch of stuff that Pokemon Crystal has. And as you all know, and I've stated it several times before, Pokemon Crystal is my favorite Pokemon game on the planet. To this day, has not been beat, by the way. Pokemon Crystal is just a gem. It is a gem. And before we get into the big discussion of what makes a Pokemon video game fun, I think I have to talk about my experience of Pokemon and a video game and why I think it's fun. And then that'll branch out later into our overall discussion. Now, obviously, this portion of the discussion will only last about an hour, and then we'll move on to our second topic, which is why I know most of y'all want to see. But, what's up, Rescue Squad? When it comes to Pokemon Crystal, at least for me, there's several reasons why Pokemon Crystal, to me, is one of the most fun Pokemon games on the planet. One of those reasons we'll get out the way, because realistically, there's nothing we can really do about this reason. This isn't really a constructive criticized reason. This isn't a reason that gives it an edge over every other game. It does, but it's an unfair edge, and I'll even admit that. Like I have no problem admitting that. One of the reasons why Pokemon Crystal just ranks so high up to me is it's a vibe. I know that sounds like an increasingly stupid reason. It is a nostalgia rose glass reason. I am well aware of that. And let's be honest with ourselves though. Like, let's be 100% honest with ourselves just for a second. Your experience with something in the past is always going to be the leading reason as that it gains a one-up over anything else in that category. I mean, that's just how it goes. I remember one time I was with my class, with my students, and they ended up watching Miraculous Ladybug. Now, I don't watch Miraculous Ladybug like that. I know of her. I understand that she's like an iconic Disney animated character. But apparently, Miraculous Ladybug went through a animation change after, like, I want to say season 4 or 5. I try to keep up with it because every time when class starts, when the day starts, I play, like, some shows for them to watch to keep them busy. Well, Miraculous Ladybug, and I don't know this, apparently they went through a change of art style after a certain time. And when the episode came on, the kids were very... Also, what's up, Navy? When the episode came on, the kids were very, like, disgusted. They were very confused. It was very much a huge disdainment for this new direction that they decided to take. Now, obviously the show's the same voice actors, same pacing, same everything. But when they saw that, they obviously didn't like it. Why? Because they started off with something else. And that goes back to our conversation. Now, Pokemon Crystal wasn't even my first Pokemon game. No, actually, that honor belongs weirdly to Pokemon Yellow. But I think Crystal was at a point where I started understanding the Pokemon games a bit more. Like, I started being able to, like, openly search for things in it. I started understanding how it goes. The reason I used that first example was to explain that nostalgia is just sadly one of those things that I think just has a one-up when it comes to our perception on reality. Everyone's going to go off and say that something that has an emotional attachment to us when it started is going to be more well received. And that's automatically just going to give it a one-up. So nostalgia is sadly a factor here. It is sadly just a factor that flows into my judgment of how I take things because I have no choice but to really go about it with that. Now, should that make the entire critique of the game? Absolutely not. I'm well aware there's a lot of things in this game that don't age well. The fact that the Pokeballs, some of them are glitched up and don't work the way they're supposed to. The fact that, yes, sometimes going back and forth from Kanto to Johto is very tedious because you have to take the train system. You can't just fly like in Heart Gold and Soul Silver when they allow you to go both to Kanto and Johto. I'm aware that certain areas are a pain. The item spawning is a pain. Some Pokemon's logic doesn't work. It doesn't happen a lot in battles. It's not as bad as Gen 1's. But I am aware that some things in this game age bad. I'll agree that the special and physical split that was introduced in Gen 4 is better than how Pokemon typings are used in Gen 2. Because Pokemon like Hitmonchan actually can utilize Fire Punch, Ice Punch, and Thunder Punch. Because now they're physical attacks instead of special attacks. So I am very aware that Pokemon Gen 2 has some definite problems that needs fixing. But why do I still carry it as like the best Pokemon game in my experience of playing Pokemon? Why do I still hold this game as like the number one of all Pokemon games I've ever played? Well, we already talked about vibe. That's a certain thing. That sadly is a thing that can't be changed. Just the 8-bit music that comes with it, the pixels, these are things that can't be replicated. You can't make the next Pokemon game have this vibe again because it wouldn't make any sense. People would go on the Switch and they'd see essentially a demake. It wouldn't fit in this day and age. So I'm aware that times are changing. And when I look at other Pokemon games, I don't get disgusted at the fact that they left the pixel era. No, that's just a vibe that exclusively belongs to the first 6 Pokemon games, or at least the first 6 in America, right? So Pokemon Gen 2 holds that nostalgia factor really hard, along with Gen 1. They both hold that as their one-up that keeps them on pretty much a level playing field with everything else. But when you wash away the nostalgia, what else does Pokemon Crystal have going for it? One of the things that I always think that Pokemon definitely had going for it before you really start to see it lose its luster is weirdly when it takes place at around Gen 4. At around Gen 4, you start noticing, and this is something that's very small, but it's something that always stuck with me in my brain and made me upset to the fact that they've changed it. When you look at a Pokemon game, and from like the DS era onwards, Pokemon begin to lose their they begin to lose the cartridge change color. And I'm not talking about the front label, no. I'm talking about the literal cartridge. How cool would it have been if you had Heart Gold and Soul Silver actually be in gold and silver cartridges, just like the original games? Pokemon Crystal is in this cool, transparent indigo-like cartridge that's got sparkles and everything. Look at this. This is amazing. It's got like the holographic label on the front. It's got like these little speckles on it. You can see through in order to see the insides of the game. It's clear. It's blue. It's fun. Even all other games, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald have like cool little cartridges, and Fire Red looks like this the same. Fire Red and Ruby, for example, are both red, but they're different reds. Pokemon Ruby has like this dark red, while Pokemon Fire Red has like this light orangish red with these little like tiny little speckles that like really make you go, wow, this is something. Pokemon Leaf Green and Emerald follow that same thing where the green on Emerald was like a sleek dark green with a holographic front, whereas Leaf Green was a much lighter green that had the speckles and like the little like designs on them, and you can see like the tiny little like sparks of holographic like glitter that's on it. It was special. It was fun. It made you like hold the cartridge and be happy that you're holding it. Nowadays, I look at like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, for example, the newest Pokemon games, and what do I get? I cannot use this example because it is in my Switch. Oh no, it's not in my Switch. It's right here, actually. It's in my Switch case. But I look at like Pokemon Violet, and look what I get. I get this lame, like, this is it. This is it. All I get is the label, the logo itself, and then it's in a dark purple, and it's covered in this, like, Nintendo Switch bullcrap. Why not make, it's tiny, but who cares? Why not make the cartridge actually purple, like the whole thing purple, and then make, like, the inside of it, like, a holographic purple, and then make, like, the Pokemon letters be, like, a shiny yellow letters with blue outline. This just feels lazy. This feels like I'm holding a generic game. If I hold it back right now, you don't know what this is. There was a certain joy to looking at somebody play their Game Boy in public or their Game Boy Advance in public, and you would like look at the cartridge and you'd be like, wait, I know what color cartridge that is. You're playing Pokemon Yellow. Or you're playing or you're playing Donkey Kong, because Donkey Kong for some reason had the same color as Pokemon Yellow. Point is, I loved looking at that red cartridge or that blue cartridge and being like, you're playing Pokemon Red, you're playing Pokemon Blue. Or you see the silver cartridge, you're playing Pokemon Silver. Or you see like a Game Boy Advance and you see the red and you're like, are they playing Fire Red or are they playing Ruby? Oh, it's like got the little sparkles on it. You're playing Fire Red. Like, the problem was, and then you could argue, Orion Sword, you said that's most Switch games in general. For the most part, most Pokemon, for most Game Boy Color games and Game Boy games, Pokemon and Donkey Kong were the only colored cartridges for real. There were some that were, maybe they would do the translucent thing or the black thing or the gray thing. But for the most part, most cartridges were black and gray. Pokemon was the only ones that really like played around with the color. But that was good. It showed that they had love in the game. It showed that I was going in for an experience. This case looked exactly like any other case. It just looked like a lame, generic Nintendo Switch case. It's purple all around, and it's got all this crap on the back. Whereas back in the day, look at these cases that you're looking on screen. Pokemon Yellow has this cool little, like the whole box is yellow. Pokemon Gold and Silver had this cool thing where, look at Silver's case. Silver's box was like holographic. The whole box was holographic silver, and then the little insides were gold, and it was reverse. It was vice versa on the gold one. The whole box was gold, and like the inside was silver, and every time you moved it around, it would like flash. It was holographic. It was so cool, and if you rub your finger against it, like the bumps are the Pokemon design. You can feel the Pokemon on the box with the bumps. It wasn't just a smooth thing. It felt personal. What's up, Vanguardian? It felt personal. It felt like you were engaging in something. It felt like it was brought to life. It had a level to it that you could connect with it. And that overall, it made you excited. If your mom or your dad or whatever bought you a Pokemon game from the game store and you're holding the box in your hand, it felt so good to just like hold it and then like look at the back and you'd see all the like little characters and the art and everything. And now, granted, I know instruction booklets are way too old. We don't need those anymore. But it was still nice. And then you could even take like trainer memo notes on the instruction booklet. So like if you go to the back, there'll be a bunch of blank pages that just say trainer memo on it. And you can like write cool stuff. You can write about how your journey is going on there. It was so cool. It was, oh my God. At least in terms of game cases and pre-Switch era, the Japanese Pokemon game cases were different color, not just generic white. Like, oh my God. It was such an experience. And it's like, that's one of the things about Pokemon that they could fix immediately is the aesthetic. The aesthetic alone is what makes Pokemon games better back in the day than they were now. Like, you felt a certain way would likely be a manufacturer's nightmare. Not really, because they were doing it back in the day. You see, the problem is, Gold Miner, is that they chose to do this. They chose to make this. Nobody asked Pokemon Crystal to look like this. Pokemon Crystal, every copy could have very much been some generic gray case, a generic gray cartridge that just said Pokemon Crystal on it with no artwork whatsoever. This is a drawn Suicune. There is no Lugia on this Soul Silver. There is no like freaking Miraidon on this cartridge. They chose to do that. Pikachu is on the front of that cartridge of Pokemon Yellow. Blastoise is on the front of that blue cartridge. Charizard is on that red cartridge. They chose to do that. That was their choice. We didn't make them do that. They made the choice to do that. And they distributed tons of copies throughout the world like that. It wouldn't have taken long. But something to let me know that they give a damn. Something to let me know there's love in this. Something to let me know that this isn't just some product. That it's a game, a video game. And I think that's where they also lost sight. They lost sight that Pokemon was a video game. Now it's a product. You got your generic legendary on the case? Check. Put your case out? Check. For Christ's sakes, they got the Spanish. Like, don't get me wrong. Respect to other languages by having the Spanish thing on the back. But the text takes up so much of this, it barely looks like you're showing off the game. Nothing feels like, when I look at the back of this, I don't feel like I'm gonna have fun on it. It's all this white crap. All this, and then finally you get some artwork of like the game that you're about to play. It just doesn't feel engaging. Most people buy digital now. It just isn't much incentive to put that level into the detail of the cartridges or disc. Again, but buying the game and physically holding it is a part of the experience. Like, that is a part of the experience. They wouldn't have put in this much effort if it wasn't. For Christ's sakes, I'll be right back. Give me a second. In Pokemon Stadium 2, I'm holding it right now. In Pokemon Stadium 2, look at this. They didn't have to do this. The game is gold and silver, which makes sense because of gold and silver. Look at this. Half of it is holographic, but it's gold. The other half is holographic, but it's silver. And you would think, oh, well, every Nintendo game, Nintendo 64 game looks like this on the back. All of them are gray. Yeah, but they've got the sparkles on them too. You can't really see it because of the camera, but they've got the sparkles on it too. So they made effort to make sure this isn't just some game. We're gonna put the glitter on the back to show you that this is silver, but on the front we're gonna make it gold and still put the glitter on it. It's little details like that. It is effort. Honest to God effort. It lets you know that these games, Look at this. Even now, when I'm holding them back like this and I move them a certain way, you can see the shine on them. You can see like this little like fun little like wing on them. Like it lets you know this is about to be an experience. This gives you an idea that this is something that's going to entertain you. I feel entertained just by holding these things. I believe it's not about the outside, but what's inside that counts. I've been playing Pokemon Sword nearly 5 years old. 5 years old game and having a good time. I believe that every game has good parts along with its flaws. That's what makes them special. Imagine if cards like Breath of the Wild. It's the sign of the times. But yeah, like that. This is what I'm talking about. This has nothing to do with old stuff. Stuff like this can transcend time. I'm sorry, but like this, you don't know what I'm holding right now. No one has any idea what I'm holding. There's nothing about this that makes it stick out. I'm holding Pokemon Violet. Pathetically. We're comparing this to these. Like, even holding these, just having them in my hands, I feel like I'm gonna have a greater time just because I own them. Like, I'm proud to own these. This just looks like whatever. Like, okay, it's a game. Who cares? Like, I don't feel a level of like joy out of them. Is Pokemon Violet a fun game? Yeah, definitely. I played it, but I don't get the sense that like they put in the effort to make me want to engage in it. When I hold the cartridge, I don't feel like I'm holding anything special. It feels like I'm just holding a generic Switch cartridge. But this is Pokemon Crystal. Like, this is, no matter what. That's another thing, is aesthetic. Aesthetic is a really powerful thing. Marketing is all around us. It's what separates something from being a generic product to being something that draws people in. The eyes demand variety. The brain demands variety. People demand variety. And I know we said a lot of people are getting digital games now. Okay, but there's still like incentives to make people want to buy the other stuff. Pokemon Platinum came with a Giratina figurine with it. Pokemon Legends Arceus, I don't really care for that game, but like it came with the Arceus thing to it. Actually, no, this wasn't from this. This was from a trading card thing. Ah, well, yeah. So it could have came with the Arceus thing. But anyway, my point is this. Here's my big point. Aesthetics can add on to so much more to make a game more engaging. And I think that's where Pokemon lost a lot of it. And I've said this before with the others. Another problem that Pokemon has, I think, is the value of exploration, the value of discovery. Because nowadays, honestly, I think, and no offense to these games, they've had their own level of joy. But these games, sadly, messed up a lot. I have Sword and Shield. I have both. Anyway, these games messed up a lot in terms of exploration. These 3 games sadly killed exploration. I hate to say it like that. I really do. But these 3 games hurt exploration hard. The reason being is because back in the day, when you played a Pokemon game, the things that you were looking for were a surprise. There was that level of anticipation. Yeah, it had its annoying, like, random encounters. But it had its random encounters, yes. But that kind of was necessary in order to make finding something else more more memorable. Dunsparce, for example, isn't a Pokemon that's that particularly special. It's in Dark Cave, but there's a 1% chance to find it, and it can still flee when you find it in battle. So it's a treasure. In battle, it doesn't mean much. But in exploration, if you find a Dunsparce in a cave on accident, it makes your heart go up because it's like, whoa, what the hell? I didn't even know this thing was possible of being in here. Or you can find Teddy Ursa in Dark Cave and Pokemon Crystal. But it's got, again, a small percent chance. And it can still flee if you find it. It was that level of looking for it. The search. Pokemon doesn't really have the search anymore. Shiny hunters, for Christ's sakes, don't have to do much to shiny hunt. What usually took like days, weeks, possibly even months, can be done within less than an hour if you do all the methods necessary to make sure that you get it. Shiny Pokemon aren't hard to find anymore. You literally can just pop in there and grab one. They're available everywhere now. Who cares? That doesn't mean anything anymore. Going in the grass doesn't mean anything anymore either. When you go in the grass now, you don't even have to go in the grass. Pokemon that you want are visible the moment that you see them. Which means you don't have to search for anything. I honestly thought that the rare Pokemon should be the ones that are hidden in the grass, while the Pokemon that are out and about have lower stats, maybe, or maybe are just easier to find with easier catch rates and lower levels. But if you dig deep, you can find the stronger, more rare Pokemon. That's a nice, happy medium. But unfortunately, Pokemon's lost that too, as if it's a quick response to, we don't want people to take their time. Going back into Pokemon Crystal again, one of the reasons that I like Pokemon Crystal is that Pokemon Crystal dares you to take your time. I think the biggest problem that most people have with Pokemon Crystal, or at least Gen 2 in general, is that Gen 2 is very much a game where they want you to take your time and not press forward so fast. But in general RPG logic, and I understand it, most people are going to, train, level grind, make those numbers bigger so that they can wash away every challenge that comes forward with them. Pokemon Crystal was made on the idea of, once you get to Ekritique, there's so many different things that you can do once you reach that point. You can split off into 3 different major directions in Johto and pretty much make your adventure from there. Yes, eventually you'll get all the badges, and eventually you'll wind up beating the Pokemon League and doing everything you're supposed to do. But that was never the main focus. Notice how Team Rocket isn't actively trying to take over anything, except for like Slowpoke, Whale, and the radio tower. Nothing that's that serious. You don't have to find as many encounters with Team Rocket. They take over the Lake of Rage, which is like their biggest thing they do, and you take them down from there and then go to the radio tower. But that's about it. Team Rocket isn't going out of their way in order to steal certain Pokemon or catch any legendary Pokemon. More or less, they're trying to get their boss back. They're trying to regain the former glory that they had so that they can reach a bigger goal. But overall, as a threat, Team Rocket isn't doing that much crazy stuff. And a lot of people are let down by the fact that the world threat of this Pokemon game isn't a world threat. It's more of a local thing. It's a citywide problem that you have to fix. It's not that big of a deal, but it's not supposed to be that big of a deal. Gen 3 starts the whole the world is about to end thing. Gen 4 keeps it going. Gen 5 ups the ante but makes you think about it. Gen 6 continues the trend yet again. And then Gen 7 raises the stakes higher but on a psychological stance with the villain. Gen 8, for some reason, forces a world threat, and then Gen 9, a world threat just sort of happens once you wind up doing everything you're supposed to do, but it's left in a personal stance, which are all unique and fun ways to handle the plot of Pokemon. But Gen 2 had a special spot because it wasn't really about that. Catching the legendaries wasn't a must. It wasn't absolutely necessary. It wasn't even required for the plot. It was something you decided to do. It was optional. No matter what. Heart Gold and Soul Silver forces you to do all that crap. Heart Gold and Soul Silver ups the stakes unnecessarily high because it's trying to make Gen 2 into Gen 4. But Gold, Silver, and Crystal had that perfect sweet spot of, if you go here, then this will happen. Whereas in Pokemon, every game afterwards goes, you need to make this happen in order to allow this to happen. This needs to take place so that these events can take place. Whereas in Gold, Silver, and Crystal, where you can come to these things, but this will happen. You can catch Ho-Oh, Lugia, and Suicune, all 3 as optional Pokemon, but they all appear on the box, which makes you curious about them. You don't have to go to the World Islands to catch Lugia. You don't have to go to the 10 Towers in order to catch Ho-Oh. You don't have to go to the Burn Tower and then do the thing for Suicune. None of this stuff is absolutely necessary. They're just things that exist in the game that you can do. The plot is scripted. Obviously, you're going to run into Team Rocket Grunt and do that whole thing. But realistically, the reason that takes place is because you've gone to this direction. They don't press you having to go to the Pokemon League. That's just something that's there. But you yourself do it because, well, it's in the game, so why not? The moment you hit Goldenrod City, the world opens up and already gives you a daycare, a department store, a hair salon, and national park for the bug catching contest is up north. All of these things become possible before you even get your third badge. You can go to the radio tower, you can go to the game corner, you can do all these things before you even get your third badge, and you can technically do all these things pretty much all the way up into getting people's phone numbers. You can check people's phone numbers. You can go to Kurt in order to make new Pokeballs based off the apricorns that grow daily. At nighttime, you can catch all the night Pokemon. There's certain trainers, well, one trainer, that you can fight at night exclusively. You can catch Ditto nearby the daycare area so that you can breed Pokemon. Like, the game is already open to the idea of opening itself up, and then you can move on from there. The game only opens up more as you decide to advance to it. Everybody says, oh, the level scaling is bad, because Pokemon wasn't expecting you to sit up there and blast your Pokemon to level 40, 50, and 60. They weren't expecting you to do that within the story. Pokemon didn't have the need to do all of that in the story. There was never a moment where they forced you to do all of that. The reason that that's the case is because people, once we hit about Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5, and all of them, everybody goes, you have to level grind if you want to beat this. And granted, there are some gym leaders that are pretty strong that are going to force you to get to grinding. Hell, Black and White and Black and White 2 to me are the most challenging Pokemon games when it comes to that. You do have to get your metal up a little bit. And we can't act like none of this didn't start in Gen 1. Gen 1 didn't have a bunch of optional things to do until you hit Celadon City. Once you hit Celadon City, then you notice, oh, the department stores opened up, the game corners opened up, and once you hit Fuchsia City, you can go to the Pokemon Safari Zone. But all of these things were mostly centered around the idea of you completing the Pokedex. Because once you beat the Pokemon League, that more or less is the only thing that's left to do. It's the first game, so I'm surprised that even those things are in. And Pokemon Gen 1 has a post-game. It's catching Mewtwo. So all of that is in the game. You can't ignore it. So with that being said, though, it's very clear that Pokemon has an idea for what they want. Once you hit Gen 2, they focus more on what you can do instead of what you must do. Gen 3 gets back on what you must do with some what you can do options on the side. Gen 4 basically makes it a what you must do mostly, and then there's some can do's on the side here and there. Gen 5 gives you some must-dos and can-dos. Doing things you don't need to do makes it more expansive and more experience. The Battle Frontier and Emerald was the cherry on top for a magnificent game. Absolutely. It's one of the reasons why, yes, you could wind up battling through Gen 2 and knocking all the Pokemon out with your Pokemon at like really high levels. But you'll notice real quickly when you look at your movesets for your Pokemon's movesets suck. Yeah, Gen 2, if you go through if you go through the game just playing like you would any other Pokemon game, then your moveset's gonna be terrible. Why? Because in order to get the TMs, in order to get the the items and everything necessary in order to make your Pokemon more unique, you gotta do extra stuff. You gotta have certain people's phone numbers. You gotta contact for certain people. You gotta do certain things. One of the things I felt joy with recently is me winning the bug catching contest in Pokemon Silver. I felt joy about this because, one, this means I get the Sunstone. And because I have the Sunstone, this means it'll be one of the few times in my playthrough I ever get to use Blossom. I've never used Blossom in my playthrough at all, for real, because getting the Sunstone was hard. You had to basically like win at this very arithmetic bug catching contest that you could swear unfairly judges your Pokemon compared to others. But when you figure it out and you get the Sunstone, it's such an experience because you can't get the Sunstone any other way except through the bug catching contest, at least before post game. It's definitely a different and much greater experience and allows you to appreciate this stuff a lot more, and it gives your player a choice. It's also like, oh, but what I want to evolve Gloom into Vileplume instead, where you're going to have to get this one girl's phone number who you battled earlier. She has a Bulbasaur, and it's right before you reach National Park. No, right before you reach Goldenrod. If you talk to her and she gives you a Leaf Stone, you can evolve your Gloom into a Vileplume. Oddish is just south. It's an Elex Forest. So you can catch Oddish and either make it into Gloom or to make the Gloom into Vileplume or Blossom. You have choices. And that's one of the things that I believe Pokemon needs again in order to make the games great. You need a level of choice. Night and day. Certain Pokemon appear at night and certain Pokemon appear at day. Exploration of these things too. Mystery. Pokemon doesn't really have mystery anymore. That's another thing. A lot of the things in Pokemon aren't mysterious. Nothing about it's mysterious. And part of this is the internet's fault. I'm aware of that. That's something we can't really do much about. But sadly, even outside of that factor, there's nothing in the games that makes you uncover anything. Once you do, it mostly becomes stuff that just becomes, okay, whatever. Like, it's not really a big reveal anymore. It's all just known now, exactly. Why do you think night and day evolutions exist? Absolutely. I got the phone number of that one last girl who gives you a Thunderstone. I got Jolteon before Kanto with Bill's grandpa. And a lot of these people complain about this. Oh, most of Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal stuff was locked behind post-game. Yeah, they needed a reason for you to keep playing post-game. I guarantee you, if you told somebody, yo, this game has a bunch of new Pokemon, where are they? At the beginning of the game. Then is there a need to play the rest of the game once you get them all? Not really. What purpose would you have to play the game if you could catch Larvitar super early in the game? Or Houndour super early in the game? If you got these Pokemon early game, then you would have no reason to play the post game. Because the post game would literally just be stuff you already did in Kanto. That problem kind of carried over to Sinnoh. Locking everything to post game. What is this, Monster Hunter Wilds? But that was an over-exaggeration. You can still get the newer Pokemon. You can still get Skarmory. You can still get Mantine. You can still get Corsola. You just had to work harder to find Johto Pokemon. The game made it so if you start the game, yeah, you can see old Pokemon, but you're obviously going to go out of your way to find the newer Pokemon much harder. And they did this very meticulously too. For example, the new bird, the regional bird that they introduced, wasn't just any regional bird. It was Hoot Hoot. Why specifically Hoot Hoot? Because most people start playing Pokemon games in the morning time, the daytime. Okay, but Hoot Hoot is exclusive mostly at night, which means if you want to find a Hoot Hoot, you're gonna have to wait until the game at night. The game is, I wouldn't say forced, but it strategically placed the newest regional bird to a time zone. They did that so that you can explore new parts of the game. Same with Spinarak. Same with Centret. But they made Centret appear mostly in the daytime, and Ladybot happened early in the morning. They did this intentionally. Why? So you can find it out, so you can explore it. They wanted you to discover this new thing, and the only way to discover it would be if you play at nighttime. If you play generically during the daytime and just rush through Pokemon, you're going to wind up noting that you only find Rattata and Pidgey. Old Pokemon from the old game. Wait a minute, hold on. Why am I only finding Pidgey and Rattata? Those are the same Pokemon I found in Red, Blue, and Yellow. This is supposed to be the new game. But then you wait at nighttime and you're like, oh, wow, wait a minute. There's some nighttime Pokemon. And yes, Pantomime, there were gamer guides, but not everybody was buying gamer guides. Not on a frequent level. Nobody really just bought gamer guides. Most people just wanted to play the game. If you bought a gamer guide, that was on you. You chose to do that. But nowadays, you can go on, like, the internet is accessible anywhere. Even if you don't ask for it. You can scroll down to Twitter and find like 15 things on the newest Pokemon game against your will. And it's not realistic for somebody who's playing Pokemon nowadays to not have a cell phone. So unfortunately, you don't get to discover anything. You don't get to learn anything. They did a slight glimmer of this where people were complaining about Inkay and you have to change your 3DS upside down. Honestly, I like that information. It was different. It was new. It was, oh, okay, neat. Heck, even the YouTube playthrough suffices too. But it was different. It was like, oh, I gotta turn my 3DS upside down in order for this thing to happen? That's unique. I've never really run into that before. So Pokemon X and Y tried to start that up. And then Alcreamy's evolution with Melcery, that was different too. So it definitely shows that they have signs of wanting to do it. But you could definitely see that for the most part, modern Pokemon is sticking with this whole, let's not really introduce that layer of depth anymore. Do you know how rewarded I felt when I went to Mount Mortar, used Waterfall to venture further, and met the Karate King, battled him, and received Tyrogue? My Ditto helped me make sure I got all 3 Hitmon Pokemon. Nice! I wish the game could have given info on how to evolve Pokemon so people don't have to risk getting spoiled when a new generation comes out. Even still though, figuring it out yourself was just a different level of joy. And it's way too hard to do that nowadays. And to spare us, Game Freak has went ahead and made as minimal secrets as possible because they don't want people to get frustrated with it. But that level of frustration was something that added to the experience because it allowed you to grow with that experience in and of itself. You felt accomplished when you discovered these mysteries. You felt some level of nuance when you approach these things. You felt a level of like joy, of pride when you discovered these things in Pokemon. I think Pokemon needs to be a bit more simplistic again, with a layer of complexibility that was underneath the roof of it all. Because that was the whole deal. Like, for example, Porygon. In Red, Blue, and Yellow, Porygon isn't exactly super strong or anything. But there was a weird level of joy to having Porygon on your team because it showed one thing. You won at the game corner. Or you made a bunch of money and spent a bunch of it on coin case coins. My point is, there was a level of like experience that you felt from that. You were able to do something and accomplish something. Was it a tedious task? Yes, but it was also a rewarding task. Pokemon is losing its charm and magic because it's a product now. More so since Go 9 years ago. The kill of Z was evident of this. Its resurgence, along with its champions, along with the champions, may be Renaissance. And even if that's the case, still, Pokemon still is a series that has its charm to it nowadays. It still always will. And it's, in a way, it's found some new charms. A lot of people do co-op play with the terrestrialization stuff. Or when Sword and Shield came out, they did the Dynamax battles. There was a level of charm that came with those as well, to where you could interact with people in a new way. Because that's what, at its core, Pokemon was always about. Pokemon was about sharing. Pokemon was literally Satoshi Tajiri bug collecting, and he would trade bugs with other people to add to his collection of bugs that he didn't have, or bugs would travel across a cable cord line, and that gave him the idea that they could trade certain things over to other people, just like with older games that let you have link cables to trade over items. It was this level of community and camaraderie that, in a day and age we live in now, where not a lot of people are socializing with people on that level anymore, Pokemon had that one up because it brought people together. And that was the good part about it. Nowadays, Pokemon is sadly a merchandised product that comes out on its 3 yearly basis in order to pretty much do what it needs to do and then get the hell out. Okay, we've done our little song and dance for this generation. Let's move on to the next generation and do our little song and dance there. And I hate when people are sticking to this new logic of, well, the DLC is coming out. The DLC. And that's not even just with the Pokemon. That's with games in general. That stuff pisses me off, because it's now you're not even relying on the game itself. You're relying on the game plus a couple of other things that happen months, maybe years after the game has come out, in order to make the game slightly better, or for the game in order to meet the standard of what older games was already able to do. And yes, I'm very aware that third versions were like that too, but at least then you could still have some joy within the versions that came before it. You didn't have to have Pokemon Emerald or Pokemon Yellow to still enjoy Pokemon Red and Blue, or Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. Those weren't absolutely necessary. They added to the experience, yes, but they didn't go, oh my god, if you don't have these, then your game is just trash. No. Red and Blue, Gold and Silver, and Ruby and Sapphire were still fun games on their own. Emerald, Crystal, and Yellow were just add-ons that helped make the experience even better, or made the experience more unique in certain ways. But relying on DLC was the issue, because relying on DLC pretty much made it so that Pokemon games could do the bare minimum until a certain level of months pass. And Platinum is Diamond and Pearl. Those are suggested. I was sticking with the Game Boy Advance games. Diamond and Pearl, along with Platinum, it's still in that same range. I think with Platinum more or less was damage control. That one was damage control. They added some Frontier Brains, which was nice, but Diamond and Pearl had so many problems to it. And that's not even to say Diamond and Pearl is a bad games on their own. Diamond and Pearl can be fun games on their own too, but Platinum more or less had to fix a lot of stuff in order to make it viable as a game. At that point, we were starting to see clear signs that Pokemon is more or less relying on this formula, which makes Black and White and Black and White 2 refreshing, because they didn't stick with the status quo. They were more unique about it. Then once we moved on to X and Y, it's very clear the pattern became so, there, that it threw us off that it didn't use the pattern. But it didn't use the pattern because at this point they were too busy focused on pumping out games and remakes. So putting all of that on their board at the same time was just too much. Game Freak has 165 employees in 3 groups. Other game companies have 500 employees, just 1 entry. So every Pokemon game is only 11% of what it could be. I mean, and that's the thing. I think Pokemon realistically needs a level of exploration and like discovery again. And in this era, that's much harder to obtain. But at the same time, there's a level of adaptment and evolvement. Some things I know for newer games need to stop doing, for example. They need to stop having rivals that are very nice to us. Stop picking rivals that pick Pokemon that we're strong against. Stop picking rivals that give you items for just showing up. I wouldn't mind a rival that hinders your progress in some way, shape, or form. I wouldn't mind a rival picking Pokemon that are based off of an algorithm of Pokemon that you wind up catching. I wouldn't mind if the rival actually knew how to battle. I wouldn't mind if, you end up meeting people and items aren't just on the ground. Scarlet and Violet had so much crap that was on the ground, I didn't feel special about getting anything. I would look at my item bag and be like, when and how did I get all this crap? Oh, it was just lying on the floor. Whereas the older games, they had items, but it was always a level of meticulous carefulness with the placement of their items. For example, I always learned this, and I learned this from my uncle because he introduced me to the Pokemon games. He was playing, and when he was playing, he would walk behind this tree that was placed near Viridian City, and he would click on the tree. For no reason, he clicked on this tree. It was a cut tree, a tree you're supposed to use cut on. And for no reason, he clicked on this tree, but when he clicked on it, he got the item potion. And that told me something. And then when I looked in the computer, I found there's one potion that's in the computer. Oh, snaps! So if there's a potion inside of your computer box, and there's a potion at the front, and there's a shopkeeper NPC that also gives you a potion, that's three people, but that's three ways you can get potions without going to the store to even buy a potion. So every time I play Pokemon Yellow, Red, or Blue now, I go behind that tree, I click that tree, and boom, I have a potion. The item finder could have found it, yes, but that's way later in the game. Sometimes there was just a level where you looked at stuff, you clicked on it and went, that placement looks weird. Click on it, boom, you get a fun little item. You got rewarded for that level of exploration, and it would help you later. From the start of Gold, Silver, and Crystal, you're given a choice. Your mom goes, I can save money for you, or I cannot. If she doesn't save money for you, you get a bunch of money, and that's great. If she does save money for you, you get less money, but your mom starts buying you items, and yes, she is spending some of your money, but some of the items she buys are items that you can't get just yet. She can buy a super potion before you get the chance to have access to super potions, which means her super potion saves you in a battle that's crucial. There's certain dolls that she can buy that aren't accessible at any store. There's certain items she can get that are hold items that you can get. She can buy a revive for you. She's bought max revives too. And you can cut it off anytime you want. You can tell her to stop at any point in time, or you can go back and you can take a certain amount of money from her to you. You're managing your money. And this is a great option. Pokemon, Crystal's the only game that lets you do that, by the way. No other the moms in every other game just heal your Pokemon, generically. That's it. And later games, they stop doing that. That's all they do. There's nothing your mom does that contributes to your journey whatsoever. The NPCs give you certain items. Some NPCs challenge you to battles again. Some NPCs tell you when certain swarms of Pokemon are in certain areas. And that's the thing that makes Pokemon Crystal so good, and what I think Pokemon needs again. It felt like it wasn't just my journey. The NPCs are giving me evolutionary items and other items. They're challenging me to rematches to give me more money or fight stronger Pokemon that I can level grind off of. They're telling me where certain Pokemon are so I can catch them to add to my team. My mom is giving me health items. Everybody is contributing to my journey. The world is moving around me. Everybody is going in making sure that I get better. There's a level of progression. Professor Elm gives you suggestions on how to catch certain Pokemon. Like, it felt like the world was moving around me and everybody made a difference. And I hate to say it, in Gen 3 onward, the NPCs are almost useless. In Gen 3, you may find some NPCs here or there that may help. Diamond and Pearl, there's some NPCs that are you can talk to. And Gen 5 weirdly picked it back up with a couple more NPCs that are useful. But for the most part, most of these NPCs are useless. I don't remember them. I don't know them. I mean, there's a reason we say Youngster Joey. No matter what the meme says, you know who Youngster Joey is. He won't shut up about his Rattata. But you know him. He contributes to the game in some way, shape, or form. You can fight him again and he's got Eradicate. Like, there was a level of, like, understanding behind that, though. There was a level of progression, a level of growth, a level of community within that game. It was small. Gen 1 and Gen 2, more specifically Gen 2. Gen 2 was small, but it was airtight. It had everything you needed in that one spot. The towns had a reason for being towns. Most of the towns had a function exclusive to it. The NPCs did something with it. Certain people gave you phone numbers. Certain areas were interesting. You could talk to one guy in the Ruin of Alps and he's like, yo, we noticed that you caught an unknown, but you caught another unknown and it looks different. Here, come to my lab. I'm going to upgrade your Pokedex to make it so that you can like differentiate between all the unknowns that exist. Not a lot of people knew that you could even do that. Like, everything felt very, like, together. And that's what Pokemon games need more of. And Pokemon games don't really do that anymore. And the fact is that, like, the best part about them was that they were RPG games, but they felt more like RPG games than the other Pokemon games that came after it. And that's not to say Gen 3 didn't have that. I mean, hell, you had the Reggie puzzle. Sadly, I think the Reggie puzzle is the only major puzzle in the game that you can go, oh yeah, that. But, like, literally, did you know? A lot of people didn't even know this. On Mondays, if you go to Mount Moon on Mondays and, like, leave out of Mount Moon and go to a certain area, there'll be, like, you'll click forward and there'll be some Clefairies dancing around this little, like, tiny little, like, mountain stub thing. And then when they leave, you click on the mountain area, and once you click on that, you get a moonstone. Boom, free moonstone. Which is extra cool because you can't get moonstones anywhere in the game. Moonstones are only available at, like, post-game. You can't find them anywhere else. That was, like, your only way of getting it at that point. I think there was, like, some NPCs you can talk to, but it's very rare, and it's, yeah. But yeah, every Monday you can just get a free moonstone at Mount Moon. Every time. And also you can fight your rival at Mount Moon. I'm not sure why he's there, but you can fight him there too. But yeah, that was a cool thing. And you discovered it. And it was great. Other games don't really do that. Like, yeah, there were some games that were like, oh, we brought back day and night. Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum were like, we brought back day and night. Okay. Are there any day-specific events? No. So there's no, like, this only happens on Monday. This only happens on Friday. This only happens. If you go to Goldenrod, there's two specific barbershop people. There's one barbershop who's the older brother who appears on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. He's more expensive, but your Pokemon gets more happiness out of, like, getting their haircut. What up, senpai? But then there's another barbershop owner who appears on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And when he shows up, that's the younger brother. He cuts your hair, the Pokemon's hair, and he charges less money for you to cut your Pokemon's hair. But the bright side is, even though he charges less money, well, no, the downside. The downside is, even though he charges you less money, your Pokemon doesn't get as much happiness out of it. So they still found a clever way to make it a daily. You're getting the Pokemon's, like, happiness up on each day, but you gotta pay more money for the bigger day. So you can either A, choose and pick which day is most optimal for your Pokemon to get haircuts at the salon, or B, you just go for every day, but you're gonna have to make more money to make up for it. You gotta make choices. Or you can take the much longer route and just have the younger brother cut the Pokemon's hair every time. It'll charge you less money, but your Pokemon won't gain as much happiness as the older brother who's more experienced. It brought life to them too. It lets you know their identities. I'm learning about NPCs, and all I really have to do is just go to them and talk to them about it. Their very actions give me a clue of what's going on. And like the other thing, for example, there's one situation where you can get Eevee and Goldenrod if you talk to Bill. But look at where that Eevee is specifically. It's in Goldenrod. Why Goldenrod specifically? Well, that's an easy one. That's because there's 3 trainers up ahead that can give you evolutionary stones based on your progress. If you talk to one of the trainers near like Ecruteak City, he'll give you a Firestone if you get his phone number and wait it out. You get your Flareon early. There's another trainer that if you go to them near Olivine City, you get your Thunderstone so you can get Jolteon. You got to talk to the girl in order to do it. She's the one that owns the Flaffy. Then there's another trainer near Mahogany Town. Get their phone number, you get a Waterstone. You get your Vaporeon. They're in all 3 spots. One's down, one's left, one's right. Notice the weird placement too. Notice that Ecruteak is in the center of it all. And notice how, guess what's in Ecruteak? The Kimono Girls. This is special. Why? Each Kimono Girl has every Eevee evolution, even Espeon and Umbreon. You can either choose to evolve your Eevee in the daytime, evolve it in Espeon, nighttime, Umbreon. South of Ecruteak, get the guy's phone number, Firestone. Left of Ecruteak, get the girl's phone number, Thunderstone. Right of Ecruteak, you can get that stone, Vaporeon. They placed everything meticulously on purpose. There is nothing that is without range. Kurt, his Pokeballs, you can get the apricorns in certain areas. But guess what? Some of those apricorns you can get, 3 of those trees are near Azalea Town. Before you even hit Azalea Town. 2 of them are up top, above Kurt's area. Why is that? Why is that the case? So that you can go have easy access to Kurt, and a day he changes them to a Pokeballs based on what they are, and then you can move forward. It's right next to Goldenrod too. The National Park, the bug catching contest. Remember what we talked about earlier. Oddish is in Elex Forest. Oddish is one of the most common Pokemon in Elex Forest. By the time you catch it and train it up and make it past Goldenrod, by this time you probably fought Whitney or haven't fought her, you make it to the bug catching contest. What's at the bug catching contest if you win first prize? A Sunstone. You can evolve that Gloom into Blossom. The new Pokemon aren't exclusive to like post game. The new Pokemon are just harder to find, but it makes you want to do one thing to another. Everything has purpose. Pokemon Crystal doubled down on this. The odd egg you get from the daycare is right before Goldenrod City. But if you go back, remember in Cherry Grove, well not in Cherry Grove, and the first town that you go to, Newbark. Once you go to Newbark and go up to Route 2, you can either get Geodude, Phanpy, or Jigglypuff or Spearow. Well, look, you can get Jigglypuff. It's very hard to get Jigglypuff though. That odd egg hatches into either Pichu, Elekid, Magme, Smoochum, or Tyrogue. 5 choices. 5 baby or Cleffa or Igglybuff. So that's 7 choices of Pokemon. Well, you can eliminate one of them because if you get Jigglypuff and catch Ditto, you can get your Igglybuff early. So you don't need Igglybuff. But maybe you don't want to do all of that. Maybe you want Igglybuff this way. So you do still have an option. The only other way at this point to get a Pikachu would be to get Pichu. Pikachu's not available in any other area at this point. So you have to get Pichu. But if you don't want that, you can get Electabuzz. Well, the only way to get that is Elekid. Or you can get Magmar through Magme. Or you can get Jinx through Smoochum. There is no other way to get them other than to go through further areas. Tyrogue is obtainable, but Tyrogue's only obtainable in a certain cave when you fight the Karate King. So that gives you options. You either go the long route or you go the shorter route. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Tyrogue isn't in that odd egg selection. I don't think Tyrogue's in that egg selection. I think it's not. My point is that the game placed them all very specific. They placed them in specifics. The Lapras is in Union Cave, but you can only get it on Fridays, and you have to learn Surf at this point, which means you have to go to Ekrotique in order to get it. And that's one thing I think Pokemon needs. Pokemon, weirdly enough, as it expanded, got worse. Because it expanded, but it forgot to add a level of nuance to each area to make it unique. I have a reason to go to Azalea. I have a reason to go to Ekrotique. I have a reason to go to Goldenrod. I have a reason to go to the National Park. I have a reason to go to Elex Forest. I have a reason to go to Mount Mortar. I have a reason to go to Lake of Rage. I have a reason to go to Olivine in order to get my Great Rod. When you get the Great Rod, yes, the Super Rod is better and gives you rare Pokemon that you can fish for. The Good Rod, though, allows you to get Pokemon that are better than the old Rod. The percentage is just harder, that's all. So you're going to be fishing longer, but your reward for fishing longer is getting the better Pokemon. Or you can take the other way and just beat the game, get the Super Rod from the Fishing Guru, go back and just find all of your rare Pokemon easier using the Fishing Rod. I could do that, or I could just get the weaker Rod, but fight twice as hard. The game gave you a choice. It said, yo, there's post-game stuff you can get, but you can get it early. You're just gonna have to work harder. And that's what I think turned people off. And later on, Pokemon Game Freak had a knee-jerk response to all of this and decided to make everything easier for no reason. And I'm not really gonna blame this on Gen 3. If I had to put a point on it, I would say it was Gen 4's fault, and weirdly not Gen 5's fault. Gen 5 is a weird fight against the grain thing. Gen 6 definitely went back to the drawing board. And then from there, we just get easy peasy lemon squeezy the games. So Gen 2 and Gen 5 are the only games that fought against that and ended up getting criticized for it, only to later be praised for being Pokemon games that stand the test of time. But those games limited you on purpose so that you can make discoveries on your own. Gen 5, you can only catch Pokemon in Unova. You can't catch any Pokemon in any other area except for Unovan Pokemon. But that made it all the more special when you wound up getting unique teams. It made it all the more special when you discovered unique stuff. The harder Pokemon to obtain are the ones often rush to get. I especially love getting rare species of pseudo-legendary lines. Kurt also makes Pokemon daily. We have 7 apricorns. It's made so people get 7 different types of Pokemon each day, different types of Pokeball each day of the week. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Thank you, Kuro. I fished a shiny Magikarp in a small pond in the daycare in Pokemon Crystal, used an old rod and a Pokeball. It was totally random and meaningful. It got raised. I got to raise my red Gyarados. Nice. Yeah, they give. Now you're probably thinking, well, they give you a shiny Gyarados in Lake of Rage. You get a free one. Yeah, you do. But that's only to show off that shiny Pokemon exist. Red Gyarados is sadly just okay. Pokemon that are shiny exist. This is to let you know that Pokemon can be shiny and exist. Whereas on your journey, you're going to wind up meeting other shiny Pokemon at some point. And maybe you don't, because the odds were really high. But it was that level of exploration that made it special. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if Pokemon took extra steps in order to make shit hard again. They need to. For example, I think Pokemon needs to make 3 different types of shinies. Yep. I think Pokemon needs to expand the amount of shinies they have. But here's the kicker. Those first shinies, the base shinies, the ones that only like this is what their shiny looks like, make those the easy ones. Fine. But make those other 2 very specific on how you get them. Make it either percentage based, but make the percentage way higher, or B, make it so you can only get this shiny Pokemon in a specific area. Like, there's 3 shiny Pikachus, right? The first shiny Pikachu is the darker Pikachu. Easy to find. Just do the shiny methods that you've been doing, and you'll get that Pikachu. Whatever. The second Pikachu takes a weirder stance. It's orange. Not dark yellow like Pikachu. Orange. I'm talking this thing's orange. Just straight up orange. With like bright red cheeks or whatever. Maybe this Pikachu is only findable in certain areas. Then you get a Pikachu that's completely against the grain, where it's like this, I'm thinking real quickly. It's more of you could double down more on the cream color for Pikachu. So this Pikachu's lighter than the original Pikachu. It's like a cream color. Okay, this Pikachu you can find in a certain area, or if you had a certain Pokemon on your team that allows for that or something. Something to really press on the idea that, okay, you gotta put some extra work in order to discover this thing. And make them hard to get. What's up, Chef? We could have Stadium Shinies be canon. Imagine blue shiny Pikachu can only be found in patches of grass by the seashore or the lakes. Exactly. But yeah, it's like that. Like, Pokemon... If you really wanted to ask me what does Pokemon need again, Pokemon needs to limit itself, but at the same time expand its exploration and its creativity of exploration. Like I said, if we were to go down the line, one, I'd say make NPCs a lot more memorable and a lot more like inclusive to the plot. Make items harder to find. Pokemon needs to be something that you have to fight for again. I think that's the trick. The trick is that, a sense of wonder, actually. Yeah, that's it, Koro. It needs that sense of wonder again. Pokemon needs to be something that you relatively need to go out of your way for. Because as of right now, that's not what it is. Pokemon is literally just, I pop it open and everything's available to me at rip. There's never really a need for me to collect anything anymore. There's never really a need for me to stop and wonder where this is. All I know is, okay, this will drop occasionally here. Oh, I can get this here eventually if I just wait here long enough. Like, there's no sense of, like, wait anymore. Everything just feels like it's thrown in the game haphazardly, and you can just pick it up. If I had to describe Pokemon games nowadays versus Pokemon games back then, I would say Pokemon games back then were, you had to like dig a hole in the ground and find buried treasure. Whereas nowadays, if you play Pokemon, all you have to do is just go to the beach and the treasure's just sitting right there for you, waiting to dig it up. Sometimes people will give you treasure and you didn't even ask for it. It's overwhelming. I don't like when every time I see my rival, he gives me 20 Pokeballs. I don't like the fact that NPCs will give you items if they're a part of a cutscene, and then that's it. I don't like the fact that, like, I can literally look around the ground and just pick up an item instead of, like, working hard in order to get it. Getting, like, for example, the Dragon Fang for, or not the Dragon Fang, the Dragon Scale for Seadra to evolve into Kingdra, that meant something because you actually had to work in order to get it. You had to do something in order to get that item. It was only one of its kind. Nowadays, I can literally just get an item and it respawns every now and then. It doesn't hold any weight There's nothing about it that feels like I'm going out of my way to discover something. Everything that I get is the same thing that everybody else can get. There's never a moment where I go, I got this item, or I caught this Pokemon. Whoa, that's weird. How did you get that? Oh, you got to go to this area in order to do all of this stuff and stuff. Like, there's never a sense of, like, discovery. There's never a sense of ownership. It's all the same. Everybody's journey is the same. That's why people make that joke with Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, where they say, oh, my Diamond and Pearl team is going to be so unique. And it's like Luxray, Staraptor, Gyarados, you know, the usual suspects. And if you don't have Chimchar, then it's basically Rapidash on your team and Lopunny. And like, it's the same generic crap. What about the TMs at the center attendants give you when you battle trainers on routes? That's nice. I definitely will say that's nice. But then it also makes it a pain to find the trainers. Like, I definitely feel there needs to be a level of like workaround to this. And and obviously it isn't going to be easy. It's going to be something that legitimately takes time and effort. And that's not to say Pokemon has completely lost these things. It's just Pokemon more or less treats these things like inconveniences rather than accomplishments. So their knee-jerk reaction is to just get rid of them altogether. And that's not really the way it should be going at all. Yeah, the Diamond and Pearl Pokedex was kind of lacking a bit. Platinum fixed up with that. And again, big old Band-Aid after the fact. But we're going to go ahead and end this portion of the discussion because we actually went overtime with this half, because I know the next half is what a lot of people came here to see. So we're going to go ahead and move forward.